I was sexually assaulted multiple times. I was passing out from being choked on, and I pretty much almost lost my life. The only reason why I'm still here is because I didn't lock that door. Hi, my beautiful people. I'm your skin therapist, Kate, and this is my podcast, Get Under My Skin. This October, we're bringing some deep and heavy subjects. This is due to Domestic Violence Awareness Month. If you haven't watched it yet, my previous episode with Ina Popko, mental health specialist, where we discussed all of the types of the abuse, how to recognize where you're at, and if you decide to do so, the steps how to get out of it. Click to the link and watch the prior this episode. As I've already promised, today we're going to dive deep into my story. So let's get started. I was born and raised in a little, medium-sized town in Russia. So I grew up there. I was raised there until I was 18. For most of my childhood, I always knew that I'm going to move to the US. And the reason is because way before I was born, my grandma moved to the US to make some money and send to their kids. She stayed there to follow the American dream. Eventually, my aunt moved up, but my mom could not because she already had me. And in order for us was to move to the United States, we needed to go through the long process, and it's called family reunification. That did take 13 years to get it. And when I was almost 18, our case was processed and we finally got the green card. So a couple months prior, we got all the paperwork. I begged my parents to stay until I was 18 in Russia so I can celebrate this kind of big date back there with my friends. And after that, shortly, maybe about a few days after, we moved to the United States. I was 18 and I was freshly new in the United States. Didn't speak any English. I was trying to go to school to learn it. I was trying to learn the culture, how to be in this country, and kind of learn from the baby steps how to rebirth myself in the United States. My aunt actually introduced me to him, or him to me, to be more directly. She rode a motorcycle in the same group as him. As you can already imagine, when you're 18, you're in a new country, you have zero friends. Yes, you do have some family, which is I'm blessed to have them around me until this day. I was struggling to feel lonely at that moment. So she was trying to find friends to me. Well, she didn't only find me a friend, she found me a husband, technically. She did show him my picture and she said that I needed some friends in United States just to show around and help me to learn the culture and find new people that I can introduce me to new people. And that's how pretty much we met. You could tell he had big, kind heart and very goal-oriented. That was probably the most attracting thing. We had similar goals in life and drive, reaching those goals. I was always very goal-oriented, and it was hard for me to have any sort of relationships with anybody if I didn't feel similar in that level. And we seemed to connect instantly. Another part is that, as I already mentioned, I barely spoke English. And that man was absolutely the most patient person in the world to take time and help me to explain myself where I could barely do so. As I already mentioned, he was extremely patient at the beginning with me. He was very driven to help me to learn. I think he was a very good teacher. He not only helped me to learn the English, he also helped me to learn the culture, how to live in the States, pretty much walking me around and showing the new world that I end up in. Again, something I already said is the driven mind. I think he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and had so much potential that I could just see to thrive and blossom. And that was something that definitely attracted me into. Big heart and commitment to their friends. He used to volunteer in his young age, and that's something meant a lot to me. And it spoke about his personality. He was always there to help out their friends. He was always there to resolve problems like this. Very fast and driven mind, as I already mentioned. And I think that's some of the extremely amazing qualities that you want to see in a person. Yes. And I feel like it's those moments exactly when I felt the most insecure about my English, not knowing, feeling a little lost. I'm 18. I'm in a new country. I don't know how to speak to that person. And one of my greatest things is to communicate with people. And when this power is taking off of you, you feel insecure. You feel a little lost. You feel like you don't have this full potential that you have. So he made me feel that I'm completely safe and completely okay to be that way with him. So he loved teaching me, he loved helping me, and he made me feel understood even when he probably 80% of time could not really understand what I'm saying. Absolutely. Um and I'm going to break down this question to different layers. First, again, I was 18. I never experienced in my life any sort of addiction that was running in the family. So that's something to me that I never could even think really through. And I didn't see that was a problem until it really was. So, drinking was always there. And unfortunately, society normalizes those things to the level when makes you not really question those type of things, but they go for so long, they create a bigger problem. So that being said, the drinking was there from the beginning. Use of the substances was there as well, but it was, I was told that it was just a relaxation moment. You have a hard day after work, it's okay to party sometimes. It's okay to have shots or 5 shots, on Friday night or every single day. It's okay. Well, I'm not going to work like that, so it's okay to do that. And my mind and my mentality, there's no other reason for me not to trust this person who loves me and who cares about me. So of course I did trust it, and of course I believed in that, and I was drawn into it at some point as well. Second part is there were definitely a moment of exposure, and I clearly have them in my minds when they were like, "Well, did this really just happen?" But you're so in love, you're so committed, and you know who this person is. As I already mentioned, all these fantastic qualities, the kindness, the go driven, the patience, the love, it's all there. So your brain just cannot process those moments when those explosions happen. Well, this person who really, really deeply tells me and tries to show me that he loves me, there is no way he actually means all these words that he says to me. But those questions that in your heart and in your head, they're there and they're real and they go way back in times. And I know exact moments when it was, the shocking for me. And I question if this is okay and if this is real. And that's actually a problem. I'll talk about a little example. It's probably one of like the biggest highlights that I have in my head. We were outside with the dogs. There was like a little fest, the town fest, and this one person from nowhere decided to throw the names and throw the words that we weren't doing a good job of taking care of the dogs. And the only reason was is because his dog was trying to attack our dog, and we told the command to stay and pull the leash. We did not abuse our dogs or anything like that. We really, really committed on training those dogs at that moment. And he was just attacking us. He was getting in a really violent argument. And honestly, at that moment, it felt like a power couple. There's like just two men already at that point. It started with one. And we're here trying to like defend ourselves and our dogs and stand our grounds there, and everything was fine. It did get loud, it did get everything, and this man actually did call the police for some reason, which police was on our side. But after all of this, you feel like, oh my God, what happened? Like, why is it even happening? But we're there for each other. We're like this ride or die power couple, as I already mentioned. But then you get in the car, you're getting attacked, but already not from the man who was attacking you. And at that moment, that man who was actually arguing directly to me, he said he's going to punch me in the face and everything. But now that is a stranger man. I don't care about it. But now we're getting in the car, we're getting away from the social settings. We're getting away from the social settings. Now, my person who technically was by my side and was supposed to be there starts yelling at me. It kind of puts you in a shock. That's first flare up, the first boom of blaming you, of gaslighting you, that, well, you're the problem. Why did you start an argument? Never started an argument. I wasn't the first one. And anyway, and making you feel small and making you question your reality. That was the first moment when it just put me into total shock. I didn't know how to respond. I felt extremely hurt because that wasn't the person that was just a second ago, before the doors got closed. Yes, he apologized, in an hour or two when he cooled down. But the apologizing doesn't fix these things that start getting broken. That crack, it begins in very early stages. And those first feelings, they always right. And I knew back then, but the reasoning why I missed them or I suppressed them is, again, I was in love. I saw a completely different side in this man that I truly loved. And I thought it was just a fluke. And all other accidents were just a fluke. It was gradually at first. There were definitely moments of spikes and a lot of questions through the time. But I think it got a little on a different level after marriage, and it got on a completely different level after first kid, but not bad enough for me to still do something about it. It got really substantially worse on the second pregnancy. And then when things got really went down. So I feel like in life, we all have goals that we want to reach. And at some point of our lives, we have bigger goals. So the first steps, and this is me a little sidetracking, but you'll know what I'm talking about in a moment. The marriage is the big highlight, creating a family. And then the next step, you think the children will be a right decision to do so. Then expanding to have their own business, which is all great steps to do it. Then after the first child, you immediately want the second child. And it doesn't make anything easier, it's just building up. So I believe It's not only I believe, I know. He built a picture that he wasn't ready for. It looked pretty outside, but he didn't realize how much it takes to invest into it. And I'm not talking about financially, I'm talking emotionally and physically. It takes a lot to manage, your life, stay happy, build a business, be there for your kids, and also be there for your wife. I was pregnant with the second child. Things get substantially worse. Drinking got worse. Isolation got worse. Escaping the house and the family. I barely saw him in the house. And if I did, then he just went straight to the bar to drink, to relax, to take the edge off. And that's when I really start questioning my things. Why is this happening? Shouldn't be like that. It's a problem. It's not okay. The way I'm being treated is not okay. I've been always okay with people taking time for themselves. I think every single person should do so. And I would encourage him to do it, but it needs to be in the fairest of amounts that, being with kids, you go, you have your time outside and do things that you're enjoying to do, which he's proceeded to do it. As well as me, I would like to have some time where I can to go to the gym, to go step out of the house. But as much as it easy sounds in the words, I guess it wasn't really easy for him to really be in it. And that down the road created a bigger problem. It was just like a snowball. One thing after another, the flare ups happened more. One thing after another, the anger escalated. One thing after another, blaming and, taking that edge off on you got worse. And including not being there for the kids and the family in general. So the time away from the house got worse. But when he was in the house, it just created more problems and it created more anger and anxiety around the house. So, yeah, the things get deeply worse, I would say, end of the 21. So, where's my, like mid to end of the 2021, and they got substantially worse in the beginning of the 22. And that's when I realized that I need to personally seek help because I didn't even know what is happening to me at that moment. That's the moment when I start questioning myself, and there was a loud voice in my head that I need help. I need help to understand where I'm at. I need help to understand what I'm going through, because every time I'm trying to communicate with my partner, I'm just being told that I am overthinking, making things up. It's not the case. The drinking is not the problem. Any sort of pressure and arguments and anger and slamming the doors and pushing everything is not a problem. And it's just, I did something to deserve that, or I did something to be talked that way. And you eventually start to believe in it until the moment it comes when you don't even know what to believe in. So that was the time when I brought up therapy and I tried to convince him to do it with me. I'm the type of person who is not just trying to make you to do something. I want to do this with you. I want to walk this path with you. Marriage is not going to be easy. The marriage is not going to be, all the rainbows and butterflies. It doesn't exist like that. But it also shouldn't be that hard. If people are committed to each other and people are able to listen and work together on the problems, it shouldn't be that hard as you're going through them. So stop telling yourself, oh, this is just a part of it. This is just moment. This is what it is. And I'm there for the kids and for all this goodness. It shouldn't be like that. It just shouldn't. And only reason I'm talking about this like this, because this is all the words that were in my head. And this is the things that I was saying to myself. But so the things escalate from there, from just drinking and not being there, not be able to watch the kids because unfortunately, when you drink a lot, you pass out. You're unable to be there for your kids nor help out to watch those kids. So this is just, from going from there, we're escalating to taking your clothes out of the closet, throwing them out of it, to kicking you out of the house, telling your mother that you're a harriet and then you deserve to be treated like that, bringing home a new babysitter that end up finding out that you were trying to sleep with that person, calling your names in the front of the kids about your looks, that you need to put the mask on your face because kids shouldn't see you, that you and then eventually find yourself looking in the mirror. And even though all of these things not true, and you keep trying to tell these things are not true, that your voice is not that annoying, that your laugh is not that annoying, that you don't look that ugly, that you didn't deserve to be talked like this. But it doesn't matter how much you're trying to tell yourself those things, they eventually get to your head. And then you're finding yourself in the mirror looking there and believing all of it. And you hate what you see. You're absolutely despite what you see there. When you find yourself in that situation, it's really hard to share those things with anybody in general. And the reason is because you're ashamed. It's not something you're prepped to be in. And you're also ashamed that your marriage is not working. My family, I felt like, knew the least, but they did see a lot of it. I did speak to one person at the most, that was part of his family. They knew he had addiction problems that did help him to, through his ages when he was younger, to come out of the certain things. And I felt like that person is the only one who can help me to help him, because I didn't seem like to be able to anymore. And so, yeah, I did a little bit. Not even a little bit. I did. I definitely did. Some of the details were pretty significant, um, including some friends. And then my family find out more, and then some of my friends knew a little bit more. But nobody can help you if you don't want to be helped. So did it change anything? It didn't. Yes. And, I'll say a little something prior before I answer this question. Even though I was 18 when I met him, but I always had the mentality in me that was built under my core, thankfully by my parents, that it doesn't matter where you at in marriage. You find a person, you fall in love, deeply in love, you build family or whatever it is, no matter where you at in your relationship. Time goes by and people change. Life changes, circumstances changes, things happen. It's not a problem. And it's truly not. It's okay to find another person. It's okay to not wanting anymore something that you built already. It's okay to overgrown the suit that you're in. So it's okay to want to change. It's okay to want to leave. It's okay to want it to stay. Whatever it is, it's totally okay. Life continues to go. So I was coming into this relationship and then the marriage always saying, if ever a moment happens where you feel like you don't want this anymore, you want somebody else, or I mean, it doesn't work at all anymore, whatever reasoning is, just sit down and talk to me about it. Sit down and be honest to me. Have the respect to the feelings, the relationship, to the family that we built, and just be honest, be upfront. We can make things work. We can separate. We can move different ways. So me through the whole this time, and it was a 7-year relationship and 5-year marriage, I always said, please tell me. Just please tell me. If you don't want this, just tell me. And I've sat down many, many times that I can't even count asking that question, if that's something he wants to continue with. But I always had an answer yes. And that was the hardest moment for me, because if there's just one time he would say no, there would be no issues to leave, no issues to find the ways how to make those things work separately. But that never happened. So after the things got bad, and at the beginning of, I would say like March, April of 22, when the whole situation drastically changed, I had to make a decision that I can't tolerate that anymore, because this abuse is happening in the front of our children. And it's not only involving me, it's involving my kids. And my closest being kicked out, I personally being told to leave, and, pretty much physically to be pushed out of it. I had to make a hard decision that I can't do this anymore. So I reached out to the lawyer, and I started a process of preparing the paperwork. A few days passed, and through the multiple days of emotional pressure and making the living in the house absolutely miserable, including locking the thermostat in the middle of the winter, so I can't change that temperature anymore, and telling me that I need to do my woman's job and do other things for him that I really shouldn't. He came down, and he finally was ready to talk to me. And he convinced me to start a therapy, which I've asked for many, many times before to do it together. And my request was declined. So that comes down to the question, why did I stay? It's not even that moment was, I don't think I even had any hope to save the marriage at that point. It was just too broken. I was too broken. There were just way too many things are done and said at the moment. But we needed to learn how to co-parent. We needed to learn how to, to cooperate. We have kids. There is no longer just us. There is also other lives are involved. So the therapy was necessarily in general to proceed in any way. So that's how we began the therapy. And I gave myself a few months through the summer. I told myself at that moment, I'll wait until the fall. And if things change and if it's truly working, then it's fantastic. We're going to keep going. But if it's going to stay like this and we're just going to learn how to co-parent, It's a great too because we're going to learn how to communicate respectfully for our sake and our children. But as it was mentioned in actually my previous podcast with the mental health specialist, there is a circle that things happening to you. And when you start a therapy, you go through the honeymoon stage again. Things get really good. It feels like there is hope. It feels like things can change. It feels like, oh, wow, that was never like that before. And you start seeing the light in the end of the tunnel. But slowly but surely, things just come back to where they at, and then eventually worse. I'm gonna cry again. Why the fuck am I doing this to myself? I'll do answering actually a previous question and this current question. Eventually, the fall came in, and as I mentioned, the things did not get any better. Things came back to where they're at. The addiction was still there. The same type of mentality still there, and relationship didn't move any upfront. The abuse still there, just in a little different way. Now you're just trying to covering up those things with, well, I'm working on it. We're those little cramps that you're getting fat, but they're no longer enough to keep going. It was unhealthy, and it was a right decision for me to stop that. I didn't want him to struggle because I didn't feel wanted. I didn't feel like this marriage is being wanted. I didn't feel like it's needed for anybody. I always told him that I want him to be happy, and I didn't feel like his happiness is no longer here because he doesn't want to be here. He's not home, and but he was telling me the otherwise. Anyway, I asked for the divorce the one more final time, and he understood. He knew where we at. He knew that it wasn't healthy and it wasn't the right for any of us to keep going with it. But the one thing that again I just mentioned is that the fire circle. At that moment, probably about the week prior, I thought, wow, it was actually a very mature conversation, and we can totally make this work. But as the days pass, things start getting worse. There is no longer understanding of why we should be separated, but instead bringing up more abuse to the table and trying to convince me to stay. Not in the right way. So, on September 28th of 2022, I received a phone call from him around 5 p.m. when I was still at work. I was supposed to pick up kids. And he sounded significantly drunk at that moment, which was surprising to me because he had the therapy literally right prior to this phone call. When I picked up the kids and I arrived at home, he was absolutely not there mentally, I would say. He was extremely intoxicated and not really making sense from the things that he's saying. He just said that he feels sad and he wants to feel sad. And I was trying to convince him to go rest or go to his happy place and go see the friends, go see by fireplace. He liked to go gun shooting. And I just wanted him to do something for him. He didn't want to do so. He just went to upstairs and he passed out in the bathroom. I couldn't move him, so I had to leave him there. Long story short, by the time I put the kids to sleep, the time comes in. Sorry, guys, you have to listen to this. It's around 9 p.m. The kids are asleep, thankfully. And usually, before I go upstairs to get myself ready for the bed, I close the doors around the house. And those details are important right now. But that moment before I start doing that, there's one thing that distracted me. I looked down the hallway and the basement door was open. And I right away realized that he was awake and he went to drink again. So I went downstairs to see it. And that was obvious that what it was. I asked him why, because he shouldn't be drinking anymore. And I just said, please just go to sleep. This is just not okay. What are you going through or the way you're at right now? Which it just kind of pushed me away. And he went to lay down on the floor. At that moment, I went upstairs to take a shower and go to sleep. He came into the room when I was already undressed and ready to go to shower. And he decided just to put me down on the bed and he was just talking nonsense. Then he tried to hug me, but then he was pushing me away with his feet and my stomach and doing this all over again multiple times. I decided he's just drunk and I went to the bathroom and unlocked the door. And when I got in the shower, he just started banging in the door and breaking it. I didn't want to wake up the kids, so I unlocked it. And I asked what he wanted. And just a side note, at that point, we're already decided that we are separated. Though not legally, but we weren't together. So there was no more of me proceeding with any other physical activities that he wanted to do. But that moment, he decided that it was his role to take over and he wanted to get in the shower with me. And I said no. And he didn't like that. And when person doesn't like that, they get really, really angry. And then once the fight started, I was taken out of the shower by my hair, pushed against the wall, pushed down on the floor, almost hit my head on the toilet. I was just trying to climb out. I was all wet. I was trying to get out of it. He was telling me, what are you going to do? What do you want to go? Want to call the cops? I was trying to get to my phone. I'm not going to proceed in the old details, what was completely happening to me. But all I can say is that I was sexually assaulted multiple times. I was stepped on. I was spitted on. I almost broke my hand with the door. I was dragged on the first floor by my hair. I was passing out from being choked on, and I pretty much almost lost my life. The only reason why I'm still here is because I didn't lock that door that I was supposed to lock. And he wasn't going to stop. Somehow I convinced him just to step away from me, which he wanted to drag me back on the second floor. And I was holding for my dear life to one of the couches that we had. And as soon as he finally dropped me, I just ran. I ran with all the power that I have left in me. And he chased me until the door. But as soon as I came outside, he stopped because he didn't want to be seen. And here I am, completely naked outside in the end of the September, in the middle of the night, running somewhere, God knows where, seeking help. And all I needed that moment is to save my kids because the house was full of guns and the person wasn't going to stop. Thankfully, one of the neighbors opened the door and the cops and the ambulance were called. If you want to ask me why he wasn't arrested that night, I have those questions too. But since we talked about it with, again, in a previous episode, there are cases, a lot of cases when even police can be convinced otherwise from the situation can be completely mixed up. So for some reason that night, I was told that they are not arresting him right now because there are children sleeping in the house and they don't want to call the social workers. Though there are clearly signs on my body everywhere from the abuse. However, I have not mentioned at that moment that I was sexually assaulted too. But apparently, it's a big factor for them to arrest the person. I was taken by the ambulance to the hospital. And to whoever says that this never happened, or I was the one who was an abuser and I'm lying and I'm just a horrible person, I can bring all the evidence you want. For example, this folder that you want to see. And I hope nobody ever sees that. This is just, it's a rape kit. It's a rape kit that is done to you in the hospital when you get assaulted. And at that moment, I didn't even know what was happening to me. The only thing I knew that I need to save my kids at the moment. I didn't know what to call. I didn't know where to seek help. My parents were out of the country. My friend was out of the country. I didn't know who to reach out to. I didn't even know what was happening to me in general. I didn't know why I'm not being supported and protected, but only until I got to the hospital, I was explained what was actually happening to me, and police were called once again. So that whole night, until early morning, I spent in the hospital telling my story and what happened to me dozens of times. And that's what the system makes you to do. You just go over and over and over of that story again, including the swabs, the pictures, the tests, and everything that including in that rape kit and assault case. But by the law, they can arrest the person until the prosecutor wakes up. So he had a little bit of time before police would arrest him for that. I spent that whole night in the hospital watching my kids through the baby cameras, just praying that nothing happens to them. Long story short, I was back to the house at 6:40 a.m. ish with cops. and my aunt got the kids. I couldn't even look at his face. And I left. He said some horrible things, but I don't even want to mention. And pretty much an hour later, before cops get back to the house to arrest him, he sent a message that he's taking his life away. And at 7:42, he committed suicide. Yes, I've been silenced for a long time. And every time I have tried to speak, I'm being shamed for that. Family and quote unquote friends that weren't even really a part of his life, but apparently knew the most, um, consistently till this day trying to say that I was the one who pushed him or I was the one who was the problem, and just try to suppress and shut me down. And this is something you should be expecting when you go through something like that. There are always going to be people that will try to silence you and they're going to try not to put the light on the whole story because that's something socially is not acceptable. But this is a big issue, and there is a reason why woman needs to speak up about it, and there's a reason why I'm talking about it is because nobody should be able to outshadow your truth. The reason I'm talking, and I took a couple of years of almost couple of years, maybe like year and a half of silence. I didn't want to talk to anybody about this. I didn't want to speak about this. But eventually, the only times when I was talking about my story, it's private to people, face to face. Some of them were clients, some of them the random people, some of them were my friends. And the thing that I realized is that so many people or go through something similar to that, and it's just not being spoken. And when I was sharing my story to them because it felt like a right moment, those people were crying and thanking me for telling me this path, my path, because it made them feel they are okay and they're not alone. And the biggest thing for me when did that happen is that I felt extremely alone. I felt extremely like an outsider, and I couldn't find even one room I could put myself into it. It's not only that the moment I just literally almost was killed and I survived the most horrible night of my life. I was worried for my kids to be killed. I also just went through quote unquote survival of a suicide, a person who committed suicide. So outside world was feeling bad for me for losing my husband, which I never wanted him to go that path. I only wanted for us to be okay and peacefully separated. But I did not talk much about the night before. And the reason is because when I did talk to people, I was just being disregarded. Keep it quiet. It's not the time. We just have to feel bad right now for him being gone. It doesn't matter what happened to the day before. It doesn't matter what you were going through. And that suppressed me to the point when I just closed up. It felt shameful to share my story. And I always felt that it was wrong. And the reason I'm talking is because We need to speak up about it. We need to talk about it to bring the awareness to make the people that are going through not to feel alone, to know that there is a other way and there is a way out. We all deserve to be loved. We all deserve to be safe, feel safe. We all deserve to live happy, healthy lifestyle in the relationship that we're at. Um, I don't want anybody to be silenced, and I don't want anybody to be ashamed of their story. You should be able to share, you should be able to open up and heal from your path and move on from it. Yes, absolutely. I've learned a lot. It made me who I am right now. Honestly, I've never thought about going back and changing a single thing because the knowledge that I have right now, I wouldn't change for the world. I know about the addiction now. I know about the ways to look for the science and not to dismiss them. I know how to trust my gut. I know that my internal feeling is the right feeling. And I know what's healthy for me and my children and what it's not. It also built me. I know that I can do those things. I know that I'm resilient. I know that I can work through anything if I really want to. So, the biggest thing is recognizing those things. The biggest thing is to not to listen to the people that try to outshadow you and still being your true authentic self because your truth is the truth that you speaking out to and nobody should be able to silence you. My biggest suggestion to everybody who, sorry for crying, don't feel like you are alone, even though I know it feels like it. As we already mentioned before, find the community, find those people. It doesn't have to be many people. I'm so blessed to everybody who was standing by my side, even though there were so many that were not. You don't need a lot, even if it's just the one person that can help you to get you out of there, to help you, to rebuild you, to support you, to uplift you. It's all you need. Find help, find a professional help, talk. The biggest thing is talking. Talk it out. It doesn't matter to who, to a pillow, to the wall, to a person. Find somebody, maybe a stranger outside, and talk. Because your truth is the truth, and nobody else knows it better than you. Find help, find a community, build the life that you truly want, do the things that you want, and live your true, authentic life. I will attach all of the supported groups and the contacts below. Once again, I love you all, and please stay safe.